You're such an incredible public speaker that you just brought me to tears.
Oh no, it's the exact opposite. You're there gripping the seat, going, "What did Heather do? Why am I here?" And all of a sudden, because you were holding it in, you started to cry. Hi, welcome to the next episode of the Indie Music Network podcast, presented by Not Dead Yet Media. This is where we talk about how artists can break through and gain visibility in the music industry. I'm Russ Rieger, a music executive, manager, and entrepreneur. I'm joined with my core team and good friends, and my grammatically great way of talking. I'm joined with my core team and good friends, Heather and Rebecca. Hi, guys.
Hey, Ross.
Hey.
We have a special guest on screen so we're not as good as Smartless. So we don't have the mystery thing to go to do that banter. But 10,000 hours, I keep saying, we have to do this for a while to get it great. This is a series for artists in the indie community based on our belief that DIY does not mean do it alone. Today, we want to talk about the sync world, which encompasses a lot. It's getting songs into commercials, TV, film, and video games, or as often thought, the Holy Grail, the mothership for artists. So we want to get that. We actually brought in a special guest, but before that, I wanted my good friends to be able to at least introduce themselves and say hi, because I always talk too much.
Hi, guys. I'm Heather. I'm also an entrepreneur and a manager.
And I'm Rebecca. I call myself a social entrepreneur because I like to build things together. And for many years when I worked at music labels, I was told that I should become a manager since I was working kind of in-house developing marketing campaigns. And lo and behold, I'm a manager now too.
I think, I talked about it as the mothership and that Holy Grail, but I think basically on a basic level, why is sync so important for artists?
I mean, it is the Holy Grail in that it can really change the trajectory for an artist. I mean, financially, it can be very beneficial. It could help fund an album recording. It could help fund a tour. The exposure could be much larger in a shorter time than doing months and months or even, years of touring. So that's why we call it the Holy Grail.
Well, yeah, and it's even beyond that. It's actually broke songs and broke bands.
Yes.
As early on, I'm thinking of the easy one is Jet with Apple. I mean, that just exploded that way. You don't know. It could have easily, it was a fantastic song. So it could have easily done it, but maybe it would have taken a year to do it where it became that. But that's happened quite a bit, which is, again, referring to traffic apocalypse. That's why everybody's apocalypse. Yeah, I'm it's too early in the morning for me. That's why everybody, everybody's trying to get in and trying to do it because of that. But in my time, I actually did do this, not only in a company I had, but when I was managing bands. But back then, before there was Zoom, and before there was iPhones, and there were just tablets. We used tablets to communicate.
Clay.
It was like clay and tablets and smoke signals. That's what I used. I got a Miller commercial for a band that actually paid for our tour, but because then it was about selling out. And you never did anything corporate. You never did anything commercial. The next thing I knew, Neil Young was railing against us doing it, punching down in that way. Although I love Neil Young, but he's an advocate for this and always has been. So it makes sense for him doing it. But we were ripped for doing it. And I'm just sitting there going, man, I just wanted to get these guys on the road. Mm-hmm. And this was a great opportunity to do it. But for the longest time, this was just not cool. And again, I credit hip hop because the culture changed everything in so many ways and left every other genre behind or influenced every other genre to go. But it's now it's because it's so hard to make a living. it is the one thing that you can do that could change everything. But you need to it's the same thing. A lot of traffic, you need to be lucky. But that's why it's so important to talk about it today. But because it's so important, Heather was great to be able to bring in a friend who is much more qualified to talk about it than me. So I'm going to let Heather introduce her.
Yes, without further ado, we have our first guest, Sydney Ferleger, former president and executive producer at the Music Playground and the Diner, and current executive producer and music supervisor at Duotone. Sydney, thank you so much for coming on, and I know we're going to learn a bunch today too.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course.
I have my pen and notes out.
Yeah, there you go. Pen to
school.
paper. Okay, so what attracted you to sync? How did you get in it? Did you go in being like, I totally want to be a music supervisor? Did you kind of, like a lot of people in the music industry, just find yourself there? What's the early story of young Sydney?
Yeah. I definitely found myself here, but I wanted to be here at the same time. I think I'm a little bit of a unicorn in the game. I like to say that I kind of came in through the back door. Because I started my career in commercial advertising more on like the production side of things. And as I worked my way through previs, which is where you kind of do like animated spots for testing, into post-production, working with editors, learning about like what happens after you shoot, and then into actually being on set, doing live action and working my way through that. I really started to develop a well-rounded understanding of the entire process. And part of that process, of course, when creating content is music. And so as I moved deeper into the music role, I realized that's where I've always wanted to be. Music has always been my passion. I've been singing and dancing on stage since kindergarten. My voice is my instrument. I played viola and piano growing up. But I'm non-traditional because I didn't go to like a Berkeley or a USC. A lot of people went to schools and studied and they knew this was their path. So I like to say I came in through the back door and I never left.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So I think also just a basic first question, what is sync licensing? How does sync differ from publishing? Like what's just like the 101?
Yeah. So sync is short for synchronization. And what you're doing is you're synchronizing audio, music, and or music to media, right? So you're syncing the audio to the picture. So audio to visual. And so that's like, just the most basic, like what is sync? It's taking a track and making it work with the picture that you have on hand. Or sometimes making it work with like a radio ad, an audio ad, that sort of thing. But it's essentially attaching a piece of music to a piece of content, whatever form of content that may be. That could be advertising, that could be TV film, that could be promos, trailers, video games. It could be an experiential thing. So something that you see on those big screens, that's what they call OOH, out of home, when you're walking by. Those little screens you see in elevators, you can sync music to so many different things. It's a wild world out there. So, but 101, bread and butter sync is music to media.
And you're a music supervisor, right? So music supervisor is the catch-all term for everything. Because I have friends who are music supervisors on film, but they don't do sync. So you're a music supervisor that is, just educate me on that. So sync is part of being a music supervisor. It's an all-encompassing thing because of placement, but there are some people who just specialize in one thing.
Totally, 100%. I think music supervisor is definitely a catch-all, but there's many, many different mediums, and a lot of people have a focus. So whether that focus is your music supervisor for one specific TV show, or you're a music supervisor for one specific network that works with a bunch of different types of TV shows, or you're an independent music supervisor and you work on films. There's a lot of music supervisors like myself that work at music houses that kind of touch a lot of different types of media. Some music supervisors are only focused on advertising. So it kind of depends. And all of those worlds operate a little bit differently. The price structures are different. The percentages are different. The way that you manage it, your timelines are different. Project to project is different. You're working with different types of music depending on what the content is.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a catch-all, but there's many nuances depending on where you work and what specific type of content you're working on. There are some houses, Music Playground, for example, where I was previously, that touch more than one medium. So some are hyper focused and some are, we had a catalog there, an indie catalog, and we pitched our songs for TV, trailer, film, promo, ad, video game, you name it. We were pitching for it. So there are some music houses that are also a catch-all and have supervisors that kind of touch all of it. Most of the time they are a little more focused, or you'll have a team. Like a lot of the major labels have teams that have specific people focused on TV, film, and then specific people focused on video games. So then you can kind of differentiate. And there's also, I think, with the catch-all, it kind of splits in my brain into two different categories, if you will. So there's the creative side of it and then the business side of it. So the creative side is you finding the tracks, or you working with composers and producers to write or rearrange tracks to make them fit to the picture, score to screen, that sort of thing. And then there's the business side, which is all of the clearance work. So if you're licensing, and we can get into that more in depth, but if you're working on licensing the track, some music supervisors do all of it. Especially if they're freelance, they're generally coming in to take over the whole project and handle all of the creative as well as the business. Sometimes you have teams that are pretty evenly split. So they've got people who are focused on creative. Once you get down into the licensing part of it, they kick it over to someone else that handles licensing. Sometimes both of those people are called music supervisors. Sometimes it gets into head of licensing or clearance manager. So there are like little nuanced titles that come, I think, within the idea of music supervision.
So there's a lot of lanes underneath that, and it's a lot more complicated than anybody can imagine.
Yeah.
With a lot of different people in it, but it's a privilege to talk to you, because not only did you do everything behind the scenes, so you also knew the production and nuts and bolts. Now you're in the front of it, but you can do anything. So, well, no, I mean,
she's like, whoa, okay.
But A, that's a great opportunity because you're never bored. You look at all the things, but B, your reach. It's kind of like if someone called you and said, it's an immediate, I could do that. So whether it's an advertising, film, TV, whatever it is, whenever you pick up the call and someone says, I have an issue, I have a problem. Mostly it's like, I have a problem and can you do it in a week?
Yeah. Mostly it's like, can you do it in an hour?
So again,
we got from her, she was like, hey, so unfortunately I do need this in 2 hours. And I was like, I'm headed home right now.
Yeah, it's real. It's kind of crazy. The timelines are insane.
So you're an ER supervisor.
Right.
Yeah, basically.
Music triage.
Well, I think this is actually another good point, because people will ask me too, because obviously we work in sync adjacent, I guess.
Yeah.
And people will be like, oh my God, sync licensing is so cool because you just like put songs in shows and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's like not exactly what it is. And I think you even just saying like sometimes you got to turn this around in 2 hours. I'm sure like the organizational skills of everything and how do you find the music and all of that. So like, I guess what is your day-to-day and what is sync not? Because I know it's not just like I found a cool song on Spotify and now I'm going to put it on Love Island. It's like,
I mean, it's not that, but it could be. You know what I mean? Like the thing is that like music supervision is a broad term because there's so many different ways to do it, right? So like if we go from like, I would say just kind of a ballpark start to finish, and I should caveat, I'm now in my role at Duotone, I'm much more focused on advertising. So that really is my bread and butter. And I kind of came up in the advertising world as well. So like, I know that world significantly like better than I would say maybe some of the other worlds, but I've touched them for sure. So my day to day in terms of music supervision, is actually this is where it gets nuanced, right? So I either get a phone call with a reference track and they're like, can you just put me together a playlist, right, of stuff in this vein. Or we'll get like the more formal way is I'll get a full brief from either an agency producer or an agency creative director, or the creative director is who put it together, and then they send it to the producer who kicks it over to us. And
Cindy,
just for folks,
a quick question. Can you explain what a brief is?
the clients that we're working with on the advertising side of things are usually direct to brand. So I'm working directly with the in-house production and creative team at Instacart, or directly with the in-house production team at DoorDash, right? So that's one lane. Or advertising agencies. Some of the big ones are McCann, BBDO, BBH, just to give you guys a few to look up. So those are our, I would say, bread and butter main clients, are either direct to brand or advertising agencies, but we're working with their in-house production and creative teams. So we're working with the teams that create the content, the commercials that you see on social media, online. Super Bowl is like our Grammys,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So the creative team from one of those outlets will put together a music brief. And what that means is, let's say we're working on a Cheez-It commercial, and they've written a script and they've pitched that script to their clients, and the brand bought into the script. So now we have a budget to work with. So depending on where that budget lies and how big the concept was or how small it was, that's going to figure out what our music budget looks like. So sometimes they're like, we want a celebrity track and we've got a lot of money and we're going to put a lot of money into this. Sometimes they're like, we need a one-stop shop, and I can talk about what that means. So the most important thing is the budget, because that's going to, in my brain, decipher who I can reach out to and who I can be able to afford in terms of what caliber of artists, or, is it indie? Is it major? Are we doing an original music project, that sort of thing.
I always find this being fascinating too. Like, obviously you don't have to give super specifics, but like the some of the biggest music and the biggest stars, like how much is that usually for like a 30-second ad? Because that can like get into 6-7 figures easily, right?
Oh,
and I
yeah,
think a lot of people don't really realize how expensive it is.
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing is, if you're just licensing a track as is, you're licensing both sides of it, right? So you're licensing the publishing and the master, and that's easily $1 million for a famous track.
But you're paying twice.
Wow.
Easily 500,000 on both sides.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And what really determines it is where it's going. So is it just for US broadcast? Is there a regional broadcast, or is it bigger? Are we going worldwide broadcast? Then it gets really, really expensive. And then what type of media is it going to be? Is it broadcast, which is where all the money is? Is it just for online, which is worldwide by nature? Are we just talking social media here? So there's a lot of different layers to how that price point comes into play as well. But just to circle back to the brief, just to round that out, what they'll send us is, they'll send us hopefully the scripts. We love getting the scripts so we know what it looks like, what's the comedic relief, or what's the, what is the tone of the piece. So that's super helpful. And then they'll put together a page of like describing what the tone is, what the emotion is, what they're going for. They'll give us reference tracks, which are always the most helpful. They'll tell us what they like about the reference tracks and also what they don't like about the reference tracks, so that we know that which lane we're staying in, and we want to veer this direction and maybe not that direction. If there, some creative agency folk are super music savvy and some are more green to music jargon. So you kind of get a huge pot of some people you can sit on the phone with for hours, and some people you have to ask really pointed questions to make sure they're saying what you think they're saying, and correlate it back to music terminology, essentially, and make sure you're getting them what they want. My job when I read a brief is to hit it on the nose and give them exactly what they want, and then also explore a bit outside of those bounds, because if we were just doing exactly what they wanted, I feel they could probably do most of that themselves. But my job is to be like, okay, here's what you want. Let me, let me take that and give you a couple of out of the box ideas, and some ideas that are perfectly fit and some that are maybe a little left, maybe a little right. Because then you can open up your mind and expand on creative and what fits. And I might throw something in there that you didn't expect, but it's exactly actually what you want.
So they actually want you to send back not one, but maybe 3 to 5 choices?
So
And
when
their
I
budget?
do, when I do, everybody has actually a different opinion on this.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah,
hot topic.
yeah, yeah.
So after I read the brief and, we understand the scope, meaning the budget and the terms and all that good stuff, I hit the ground running. So I will email labels, publishers, indie labels, indie publishers, my friends that I know have music in that vein. You know what I mean? Like just everyone that I know that I think is going to fit within the brief or might have something. And so that could be anywhere from like 5 labels, if I'm in a rush, to like 30 different people that I'm reaching out to. And if you just think, if every one of those people sends me 10 tracks, that's a lot of music.
It's a lot of music to listen to.
And so
So it's verse chorus. It's verse chorus next. Verse chorus next.
Yeah. It's a time management thing, and some briefs. Honestly, the briefs that are more specific, I prefer because it's easier to cull it down. Like yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. The briefs that are like less specific and a little more generic are harder for me because I'm like, well, this could be funny and like that could also be funny. It's harder.
Like female vocal indie pop. You're like, well,
it's really hard to call it down. And sometimes if we get a super broad brief, because like we'll get the most intricate and beautiful briefs and we're like, okay, we get it. We know what we're looking for. And then we'll get briefs that are literally buzzwords. And we're like, okay, sometimes we'll hop on a call with the creative team to talk through it with them because then we can really dig into what they're actually looking for.
Right.
If we have the opportunity to do that, we don't always have that opportunity.
No, all the time.
Yeah, it's a time thing. It's a resources thing. It's everything. So if we get that opportunity, we do it. If not, we have to take whatever we have and run and do our very best. And we've been doing, most of us in this game have been doing it for long enough we can kind of read between the lines with certain things. Or if we could ask, like, we could maybe respond to the brief with 1 or 2 questions to get it a little more focused for our brains. And then,
well, you've seen so many briefs that you kind of could translate it, but
Totally.
It go with the better specific vision of the brief, the less songs you would give, or is it, or the more we want this feel, that's when you have to give more songs? Does it work like that? Or that's what I was curious about.
So I try not to limit myself. I generally speaking will never send you over like 35 or 40 tracks. Like that's where you're hitting like, okay, well, that's a lot of tracks for anybody to go through.
Right.
So if I'm one of say 3 music houses that you're sending this brief to and we all send you 40 tracks, like that's nuts.
They're not doing that the next time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So everyone has a different opinion. I've heard someone say they cap it at 5 only. They will only send 5, which I think personally, like that to me feels like if you have more than 5, like that feels like you're stinting it a little bit. Like, you're kind of closing the doors to like what could be. I have another colleague who says 10 max. I try to say like 30 to 35 max. Like if I'm really feeling good about these tracks and I want to give you a variety, if there's room for variety within what I'm sending to you, then I'm going to like allow that. If it needs to be more focused, then I'll call it down more. What's nice is that I have a team, right? So if let's say I've went through 200 tracks, I'm down to like 45 and I'm like, all right, I need somebody else. Like, at a certain point you get numb from doing all that.
Of
like,
course.
all right, I need somebody else to take a look at this. Someone else on the team will like cull it down and then I'll come back and be like, yep. And then we might get it down to like 20. So I think everybody has a different opinion on this, to be totally honest.
Well, I used to do much less.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything because it was also an earlier time. So, and also I felt, and maybe we don't need to talk about it, but usually on that side, there was always a music supervisor from them and they had their own A&R thought. So there was a little bit of resentment that it was going out. Which again, topic for another time maybe, but I remember that.
We can talk about that though, because what we're seeing now all over, but more specifically in the advertising industry, is that they're getting rid of music supervisors in-house.
They're culling that out.
There's significantly less people that are working directly at brands or directly at advertising agencies that even have the word music in their title. A lot of them have slashed those departments entirely. It's actually been sad to see.
Yeah.
For people like me that work at a music house, it's a great opportunity because if they don't
Right.
have a music supervisor in-house, then they need us, right? Because they don't know how to talk the talk. They don't know how to reach out to the labels and pubs and do clearance work and that sort of thing. So it's nice.
No, the business model shifts to we're gonna hire outside to go get that done, and they're gonna take care of everything, and we won't. But then if that happens, who internally listens to decide? The producer?
Usually the creative team.
Creative team.
It's usually, so there's, and every project is different. Sometimes they have like an art director and a copywriter and an assistant creative director or associate creative director and a creative director and a group creative director. So sometimes they've got like a full team
layers
of doing that. And sometimes it's just, a producer and a creative. And so that varies vastly, but it's usually one of two things. And this varies team to team as well. But generally speaking, it's the creative team who will go through it. Sometimes the producer gets ears on it first because she knows, she's been on all the team, all the client meetings and all those things, and some things that the music team hasn't been a part of. And so the producer might cull it down a little bit before they send it over to their creative team just to help their team stay focused.
Right.
I do sit somewhere between music supervision and original music. And I think people kind of forget about original music when it comes to sync because they're just thinking, oh, I'm a band and I have a track and I want to get this track I wrote into content. And that's one way to do it. But original music, I think, still falls in the vein of sync because you're still scoring to picture and syncing a track, whether it's bespoke or not. And so there is a capacity, and we can get into this as much or as little as you want, where we work with artists that we maybe have signed to a catalog that are also writing bespoke with us, or that they're rearranging their tracks or trailerizing their tracks or doing things to their tracks to get them further into sync. So it's...
No. There's a history of that. Some of the greatest songwriters since the 60s wrote some of the most famous commercials you ever sang to.
Exactly.
That actually was first.
Right.
It was grabbing songs that were already recorded to place them. Right. That came later.
Yeah.
But you're talking Neil Diamond. I mean, there are legendary things, and the guy who wrote the Coke commercial. There are. We're filled with that. So you have a library?
That was my next question. I was saying, let's rewind.
Go ahead, Heather. Ask your next question.
If you guys are on the edge of your seat wondering what my next question is, no worries, because we will be back next episode with part 2 of Sync Licensing with Sydney. Huge shout out to her again. Thank you so much for doing this, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Music Network podcast. If you have questions or want to send us music, you can follow us at Not Dead Yet Media or contact us at our website, notdeadyetmedia.com/contact. If you found this episode helpful, share it with an artist or industry friend. And if you want more practical, no bullshit strategies to build your music career, hit subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. The music you're hearing today is artist Tosh Wolf's song, Electric Blue. Until next time, keep making music that matters. And remember, in the words of Frank Turner, we can get better because we're not dead yet.